どうもこんにちは、ギターショップTONIQの小沢です。今回はテイラーギターの魅力について語っていきたいと思うんですけども、アコースティックギターのブランドといえばですね、マーチン・ギブソンというふうな代表的なブランドがあるんですけども、テイラーも今ものすごい有名というか人気のあるブランドなので、今回はですね、アメリカの本国のサービスネットワークマネージャーのロブさんがいらしてますので、テイラーの魅力たくさん語っていただいて、皆様に知ってもらいたいなと思います。ということで本編どうぞ。最初の質問なんですけども、なぜテイラーのギターはボディとネックをボルトでジョイントしているのかというところです。
Well, it started honestly from the very beginning before any of us were around as considered Taylor guitars when it was Bob and Kurt and they were working at the American Dream. Bob realized that you could create a nicer neck angle and a better playing guitar if it was a little more adjustable. And the ease of being able to build a body and build a neck and then set the neck angle to that body and know that if there was slight little changes, you would be able to adjust that. He felt that that was how a guitar was supposed to be made. Now, of course, that was very early. That was, 74, that's very early. And it was frowned on at first. It wasn't the thing to do. But Bob knew. He's like, no, this is how a guitar feels good to him. And then that's really where it started as being bolted on. Now, as it progressed, we realized that, of course, and when what we spoke about it earlier, is that humidity changes, playing style, all of that matters. And being able to have a fully adjustable neck, it just changed everything on how acoustic guitars can be played. I think what a lot of people, this will go a little bit deeper than that. I think some people don't understand how many different versions of the bolted on neck we've had besides just a fully bolted NT, okay? In the pre-early days, there was a tenon that actually went down into the body of the guitar, very similar to what you would think a dovetail would be. But there were bolts that went through. So it was kind of a combination in a way of, if you look at it with a tenon and then the bolts, or if you could just glue it if you wanted to. Then that went away and it went to inserts directly into the heel, which made it very easy for us in production to manipulate the heel to set the neck angle. And we did that for 20 years easily, maybe even longer, and then the NT came along. I mean, technically, the Collings guitar still uses like the original way Bob Taylor was gluing his fingerboards on and using a tenon for the bolted heel. And both of them were very good friends, so it's kind of ironic that both of them were doing quite the same things.
なるほど。ボルトオンジョイントを採用していることのメリットは分かったんですけど、次デメリットとかって何かあるんでしょうか？
And a short answer? No. There's arguments either way. All of them are valid. Okay, and I'll put it this way because it's an easier way to say it. There are absolute Gibson Les Paul players, molded neck, glued in, solid, big chunk of wood, and then there are absolute Fender Strat players. That's a bolted on neck. Both of them are amazing. One isn't better than the other. They're just different. Okay? So, but what we do have an advantage of, and this is just straight fact, is adjustability. Just like a Fender Strat, just like what we just did to your guitar, as a matter of fact. The Fender Strat, a bolted on, or just I'm using that as a name because everyone recognizes it, but a bolted on neck is far more adjustable than a glued down neck. So with the acoustic guitar and all of its movements and climate changes, it's just a very nice advancement for the guitar, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. It's just different. Well, the guitar that plays well will always sound better to you because it plays well. Anything that plays great, you're going to love. The number one advantage is having that ability to adjust it, to be able to remove the neck really quickly and put it back into a better playing position. That is the advantage of it. You also have the hard traditionalist guitar player who is like, no, it's glued neck only, and that's great. That's why those guitars are still here. They should always be here, they'll always be here. But for the player who's looking for that adjustability for that new look, new style. That's where this comes in. We've even had that happen to Taylor guitars between our two different neck styles. Okay, so the difference is, so we're talking a glued neck and a bolted neck. Okay, well, Taylor guitars also had a glued neck with a bolted heel, and now we have a full bolted neck. Okay, so I had customers come up to me and say, Rob, man, there was this 1998, before the NT 510, it was the best guitar I've ever played. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, did you buy it? He goes, no, it wasn't an NT. It wasn't the new Taylor neck. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. We did 25 years of making our original neck. I have one of those. It's an amazing guitar. That isn't the new technology neck. The Taylor neck today is a great neck, but so was our original one. So, you know, even our own customer can get lost in that kind of sea of what's better, glued or bolted. So.
セットネックとボルトオンでサウンドの違いってあると思いますか？
I understand. I think that's really going to come down to the person's ear, because I think two guitars next to each other of the exact same model, of the exact same brand, sound different. So I can't tell you if one sounds better or not than the other. I think it's going to come down to the person and what they feel they like in the wood combination and the body size. And I think there's so much more to it than just whether it's a bolted on neck or a glued neck.
なるほど。
You know, there was a time I was at a gentleman's house who had several different acoustic guitars. And I picked up one, and it was a very small body single O guitar. And when I played it, I was like, it's okay. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, this is my favorite guitar. And he picks up and he plays it. And I'm like, whoa, that's not how that sounded. But that's how I played it. So sometimes too, the way the guitar is, it depends on the player and is it for them versus whether it's good or bad. Yeah, it's hard for me. I mean, I love guitar so much that and I try to see it from a different angle to not, you know, this is this or this is that. It's like I see it as just this one beautiful thing that is a guitar, and then how they fit and how they work with each person is the magic part of it.
なるほど。結構いろいろと検証みたいなうちのチャンネルでもやってきましたけど、それ以上にこう大事なことがあるっていうことが分かりました。テイラーの塗装についてお伺いしたいんですけども、テイラーが採用している UV フィニッシュというのはどういった魅力がある塗装でしょうか？
It's a polyester finish, so it's a resin-based finish. It's not a natural lacquer. But the nice thing that we have found with it is it's very flexible while being very tough. So it still allows the guitar to move, it still allows the sound to come out and the guitar to breathe, but at the same time the finish is pretty tough. And what that allows us to do is spray it very thin. So you still get a very high gloss finish. It's very thin, allows the guitar to move, and the number one thing about it, it's cured. So when we're done with that guitar at the factory, that finish is cured. It's not going to cure anymore. So you're not waiting for it to happen. It's done. Now, what's important to understand about Taylor guitars is, yes, we use UV finish. It's not the only finish we use. We use several. Okay? The gloss finish that we use is UV. The paste fill that we use is UV. All of our colors are standard lacquers. All of our satins are either acrylic or they're polyurethane and or a water-based satin. So yeah, we have UV as our main base for the finish and our gloss coat. But Baby Taylor's 314, Builder's Edition, many different types of satin finish that are going to go on our guitars as well. But they will have a UV base coat underneath. Yeah, the finish on a Baby versus the finish on a 314 versus a finish on a Builder's Edition 914, or 3 different finishes. One of the biggest advantages for the UV finish is that we do not have guitars waiting to cure. We can finish them, cure them, sand them, buff them, and glue a bridge on in the same day.
もう最初の頃からずっと UV を使い続けてるっていうことですかね。
That's a really good question because this is a fun story for me anyway. When I first started in 1991 at Taylor Guitars, within my first month of being there, Bob Taylor came in with a piece of wood with this heavy finish on there and said, "Give me your fretting hammer." I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Look, we can't even scratch it." And he's trying to scratch this finish with a fretting hammer. And he goes, "But this is too hard. This isn't guitar finish, but this is our future." This was in 1991, okay? By 1994, we were using a base paste filler that was UV, and they were still working on a resin for the top coat. Within 95 to 96 is when we started using a clear coat UV top coat finish. Well, that wasn't the main reason, but it was a really good reason. The main reason was also Bob and his production line and wanting to not store instruments. But California was also changing its EPA, and it just worked out. It kind of just worked together and worked out that way. Because in 1991, no one was talking about the EPA environmental stuff. It was more into 96, 97, those eras, years. And this just happened to just fall right in, and it was perfect. Because there were other finishes we could have sprayed that would have been fine within the EPA. But the UV was just perfect for us. And it was one of those pioneering things where people looked at us very much like the bolt-on neck, like, "What are you guys doing? Come on, that's not a guitar. UV finish belongs on a bar table. It belongs on furniture. It doesn't belong on a guitar." And in that formula, yeah, they're correct. It belongs on a bar table or furniture. But in the formula that Bob helped create, it was a guitar finish. And it still is today. So. Oh, that's way later, but that's just how we spray it. That's different than the UV. We were hand spraying UV for years, yeah. You want me to go into that one? Okay, so it's an interesting concept. Okay, so the spray head is spinning at high RPM. The guitar itself, you can't, it's a piece of wood. Electricity doesn't touch it. But we have a metal grate underneath, and that's the negative charge. So you have the positive charge of the finish and the whirling spinning head, and you have the negative charge down below, and we put the guitar in between. And then it wraps around the guitar.
そういう話を聞きましたね。つまり UV フィニッシュっていうのはすぐに仕上げることができ、薄くしかも硬さもしっかりあって完成を届けられるっていうところと環境に対してもいいとメリットだらけの塗装ですね。続いてブレーシングについてちょっと聞いていきたいんですけども、テイラー独自の V クラスブレーシングといったもの、どういったものなのかちょっとお伺いしたいなと思います。
Well, I believe what Andy Powers was going for was a guitar that would still have serious projection, clear, clean notes, and have excellent sustain. And what that allowed it to do was similar to say like an electric guitar with a molded neck, where you would hit a note, and even though it's not into an amp, you would feel the body sustaining. It would still continue to go. And that's that rigid center of, say, a Les Paul or Paul Reed Smith, something along those lines. Having that V brace going almost parallel with the grain and in line with the neck block was giving that same type of sustain and feel, while the outside was free to float and move, and then that's where the volume and projecting came through. And because of that sustain of the V, it actually gave you a clearer note that was more in tune. Our intonation has always been great on our guitars, but not having these other nodes and things and frequencies happening in the guitar, it focused the sound and the notes became cleaner and clearer.
耐久性とかに関しても特に問題はないと。
I think they're just two completely different bracing patterns altogether. You're going to get certain notes. Someone may say, I like better with this bracing pattern. And then other people will say, but no, but I like the clarity of this bracing pattern. And that could be from any guitar. But for our guitars, the V-Class, I think, just made the guitar more balanced. Because we did have the original X-Brace, too, from the traditional guitars. And some had the big, loud, thumpy, low E. But they're kind of weak on the high strings. And that just seems to be normal within an X-Brace guitar, which is no fault. It just seems to be normal. The V-Class just seems to just align everything a little bit better and put everything a little more even. One isn't louder or softer than the other. It's a little more defined now. One of the nice things about the X-Brace, and it's actually a double-edged sword in a way, because with the V-Class and the X-Brace, the difference with the V is the V top doesn't really move because it is going parallel with the grain of the top. Okay, so what that does is it allows it to hold its neck angle and hold its shape very well. With the X-Brace, and it doesn't matter whose X-Brace, including what we have now on our Takati guitars, it has more of a bicoupling effect, meaning it's crossing grain. And what that does is it allows it to move like a weather vane almost. When it gets humid, the braces push the top up. Okay, it isn't like the top is coming up. It's really the braces are doing it. The top actually moves side to side. Okay, and a lot of people don't realize that. The top isn't going up and down. The braces are pushing it up and pulling it down because of that cross-grain bicoupling. Where the V-Class is almost straight parallel with the grain, it doesn't really move. It moves with vibration, but it doesn't lift and it doesn't fall very much at all.
これを完成させるまでにどれぐらいかかったとか聞いてもいいですか？
Many years. We had different versions sitting around the factory that I know of at around 2012, 2013. We were not allowed to say anything. We have things at Taylor happening every day where we're trying to improve this, trying to improve that. Some things we go, wow, that's pretty good. We can't release that right now. That needs to be in our back pocket, so to speak. And we'll work on that, in another year or two. Because we just may have came out with something. Now it's like, well, wait a minute. This is even better. So we have to mind that. And some things we do, and they never come out. We just go, nope, not going to happen. Kind of like our archtop jazz guitar. They probably never even knew we had one. Nobody does. Because we cut them all up after they were done. Or our classical. There's only one instrument that I wished we would have done. And we still have two of them hanging in the factory. And I'm probably going to get barbecued for even mentioning this if this gets back to the factory. But I don't care. We have two T5 basses. They're the coolest bass guitars ever. And we only made the T5. We never did the T5 bass. But we have two of them.
Well, initially it was a bass, wasn't it?
It was. It was, and it turned into a guitar.
V クラスブレーシングっていうのは、いろいろと試作を重ねた上で完成したブレーシングになってまして、耐久性とサウンドと、兼ね備えたブレーシングというわけですね。はい。ピエゾピックアップについてなんですけども、テイラーではアンダーサドルではないピエゾピックアップ ES2 が採用されてますが、アンダーサドルのものと比べてどうなのかちょっと聞きたいですね。
Well, the technology works the same. They're both pressure based. Okay, where one is just tightened from the back and one is tightened from or pushed down from the string tension. But what we realized was the piezo element sounded better with less pressure on it. Well, that would be impossible to really be able to do on the under saddle because you have the string tension that's pressing down on it. So by setting it behind, for one, you didn't need nearly the size of crystals. We have very small crystals on our pickups, and then we could adjust the pressure to where we could get a more natural sound out of a piezo pickup. A benefit of that, it was just a byproduct of it where it was, was string balance is better now. So between those two, being less pickup, smaller crystals, a more natural sound, and string balance, that was really the big advantages and why we moved in that direction. And once again, on the service side of it, it's easier for the customer. Once the pickup is set and adjusted, you don't touch it again. You don't have, your saddle won't fall out of your guitar. You can put your strings on and off and tune them any way you want, from the high E to the low E or inside strings or anything, and you're not worrying about even pressure being put down onto your saddle. It's coming from the back and it's already set. So you take your strings off, put them on, change gauges, anything, it doesn't matter. Because a piezo pickup needs some type of pressure on it to send voltage, with that pickup completely backed off, there's no sound.
今までのと全く別物のピックアップってことですね。
And I think as a technician, it's one of the hardest repairs for a technician to do is balance an under saddle pickup, because there's so many obstacles that can happen from the material itself, from the pickup, from maybe the guitar's bridge change to the thickness to maybe the pickup's dying. There's so many other factors that can come into it, that with the ES2 being able to just lightly touch the back, it just makes it fundamentally nicer for the technician, better for the customer in the end. Even if they don't understand the technology, it's better for them with the string balance, but definitely ease for the technician for sure.
テイラーのギターってやっぱりピックアップを通したサウンドにものすごい定評があるんですけども、もともとのやっぱコンセプトとしてエレアコとしてこう作成をしていたというか、アンプに通す前提で、ギターを作っていたのですか？
We had pickups in our guitars early. Not many. We had the undersaddle single Fishman pickup, no preamp. Undersaddle single pickup Lloyd bags. Okay? That's all early 90s. Okay? But what happened within that decade? We had, in the late 80s into the 90s, was MTV Unplugged. Okay? Taylor guitars had the lowest action of an acoustic guitar. That means every rock and roll player could go on to MTV Unplugged and play an acoustic guitar and still be able to do those riffs that they did. We started putting more pickups in our guitars for those artists, for those people. More people see our guitars with the pickup in it. It just moved through our production that way. And from that through the 90s, we became known as the company that puts the electronics in their guitar, and it became kind of symbiotic with our acoustic guitar. But it wasn't something that we consciously did. It was very organic in how it happened.
なるほど、めちゃくちゃ面白い。ES2 というのは、今までは弦の、張力だったり、太さだったりっていうところで、左右されていた部分を全てこう解消したピックアップというか、あとは出力の調整も、しっかりとできるっていう風な革新的なピックアップシステムだと思います。テイラーのギターなんですけども、ボディシェイプが本当に多数あると思うんですが、それぞれの特徴だったり違いだったりというものを教えていただきたいです。
Well, my favorite shape of our guitars is the grand concert, and that's probably different than what a lot of people would think. For me, I'm an electric guitar player, so I like that tighter feel of the guitar closer to my body. So I'm not looking for that giant sound. I'm looking for a controlled guitar where I don't have to really hit the strings hard to project the sound, and that would be something that the grand concert would be good for. So you don't have to, there's not as much mass for me to make the guitar what I need it to be. So for me, a grand concert is a really nice instrument, or for a person who likes to fingerstyle, things along there. And then from there we can move to the grand auditorium, which is the flagship. That is our flagship shape, and that came in from 1994 forward. And that is that, I don't know, it's Swiss Army knife, I guess, of shapes where it's loud enough and big enough to be a big guitar, and at the same time it's small enough to be very intimate. And then depending on your wood combinations, of course, you're going to get anything from a really fantastic, punchy guitar, like say the 814 with the Adirondack top, or maybe you're going to have a 500 series with a mahogany and maybe a cedar top or some type of a Lutz spruce, and you get a softer tone out of that guitar. So that's a really nice body shape that's just pretty much for everyone. And we also have the Grand Pacific, which is a much larger body with the sloped shoulders. So if you're more the bluegrass, you're the traditionalist, that's a really good body shape for you as well. It's going to feel comfortable. It's going to feel natural and normal. And then of course we have the Geos, much larger body. Too big for me. Sorry, like I said, I like the smaller guitar, but there's many people that really like that bigger guitar. But there's something we should talk about too that a lot of people miss out on is our small body 12 strings. The Grand Concert 12 strings as well as the GA 12 strings. And so the GC and GA in a 12 string is a really nice 12 string that's very comfortable. So let me ask you a question, since you've been asking me all the questions. What's your favorite body shape on a Taylor? Now there's a body shape we missed because there's two of them of the same. Okay, and that's the GS and the GS Mini. Same body shape, one is shrunk down. And that GS Mini has been something that took the industry by storm. So that's a really nice guitar shape to think about, to where you get a really big sound, but it's still very small guitar. Great for a beginner or someone who likes a parlor-sized guitar, or someone who just likes to be a little more intimate with the guitar. I learned just a few weeks back, I believe we've sold almost 500,000 GS Minis alone.
2017年とかになんか15万を出荷されたみたいな話を聞いたんですけど、すっごい伸び方してる。続いての質問なんですけども、テイラーが考える木材による音の違いとは何かという話なんですけども、ボディトップに何を使うとか、サイドバックに何を使うとかで、それぞれどういった音を狙って作っているのかということをちょっと聞きたいです。
Wow, that's a tough one. We like using ebony for our fingerboards. We like using ebony bridges. We have I don't know, maybe it'd be best to say it this way. We have a program we call Find Your Fit. So for me to say, why this tone wood and this top and this body shape, and that's so subjective. So, and this comes down to when we were saying, oh, my friend got the same guitar I did, when really they needed a different one. So on that, I think to answer that, I believe the Find Your Fit is the best way to go. So the person can find if they like rosewood in this body shape, or do they like koa in the same body shape, and hardwood or softwood depending on the top. I think it'd be very difficult to answer that question as, well, the 814 with this spruce top sounds like this, and an 814 with that top sounds like this. I think it's more personal. Yeah. Now for me personally, I like the 314 Urban Ash 50th anniversary, and I like the 324 Urban Ash. I also like our 512 because obviously that's the Grand Concert that I own. And those two guitars, to me, the 324, whether it's the spruce top or the mahogany top, both of those are like, to me, my guitar. And of course I can sprinkle in a few others, but those are the ones for me personally.
なるほど。もう音の違いっていうか、本当主観でしかないっていう部分なんですね。
Yes, we can give you the idea of what we think, but your ear could be completely different than ours, and our words may not be what you're hearing at the same time. So.
テイラーで使われているエボニーなんですけども、真っ黒ではなくちょっと縞模様の入ったものがあるんですけども、それを使っているのはなぜですか？
If you think of the industry believing that ebony is black, okay, that only good guitars have black fingerboards. In my own view, I want to go all the way back to the import inexpensive guitars, the $100, €1,000 guitar. They're maple fingerboards painted black. They're mahogany fingerboards and bridges painted black. So everyone thinks growing up that every single guitar, well, how come my very inexpensive guitar has a black fingerboard, but I can't buy these because they have stripes on them. Ebony is black. Okay? Well, Bob, being the maker that he is, manufacturer, is realizing that ebony is leaving the planet. The quality of ebony that people are thinking is leaving the planet. He took it upon himself to go out to the forest and find, look, the ebony is everywhere. They're cutting trees down, and if it isn't jet black ebony, they're leaving them there. So they're cutting down 10 trees to get 1 or 2 that's jet black. When really, if you look at it, all of the ebony is excellent. It's just re-educating the population of guitar players that it's still excellent quality wood. And Bob is never one to shy away from explaining that we have enough ebony to go around if we start using all of our ebony. And he had no problem putting that striped ebony or colored ebony on his flagship 814 model to prove it. And from that, it has spawned out into other manufacturers as well.
今まで信じてたものがどんどん崩れていくような感じがありますね。でもやっぱそれでこうやり続けててちゃんとこう支持されてるっていうのがやっぱすごいなと思いました。今日はもうすごいいい話を聞けました。一番こうなんていうんだろう、感動したのは音っていうのが主観で決まっているっていう部分で、ローズだとどうたらとかっていうものをすごい考えてやってたんですけど、そうではなく素晴らしい楽器は素晴らしいんだということを再認識しました。で、テイラーのギターに関して、ラインナップもすごい多くて、もちろんサウンドに関しても伝統的からもしっかり、革新的な部分もやっていて、いろんな選択肢があって必ずその人に合ったギターが手に入るというか選べるのもテイラーの魅力なのかなと、思いました。
Okay, well, I'm really glad to be here. I'm really glad to talk with you and enjoy this afternoon. I think it's great to get the Taylor love and the Taylor world out there to everyone and hear it straight from us. Hear it straight from us, not from hearsay of what's going around. And to the player, you know, get out there and play them. Play the guitars, enjoy them, take care of them, follow everything we mentioned, and we're welcome to bring you in the family. We're welcome.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you.
Thank you.